The silent dawn was broken by suspicious noises from the room. A young woman woke up startled to realize that someone searched her personal things. The shock took over her when she opened her eyes, she saw her mother-in-law stirring her drawers without the slightest embarrassment. Finding a hidden envelope with her economies, the older woman, without any ceremony, said naturally, "This will serve to reform my apartment." But it completely underestimated the daughter-in-law's determination. Good afternoon, dear listeners. It is a pleasure to receive them once more in this space. Today I bring a story that will mess with your emotions and make you reflect. Follow until the end. The weak morning light barely illuminated the apartment when Lydia closed the door carefully, trying not to make noise. The clock scored 7:30 a.m. The night at the hospital had been exhausting. 5 patients with infarction, 2 in critical condition. Her fingers still felt the weight of the defibrillator she herself operated on the supervision of the boss on duty. Tired, he took off his shoes hung the lab coat in the entrance hanger and went straight to the kitchen. The sink overflowed with dirty dishes, another heritage of the mother-in-law, who always left everything behind. Lydia sighed deep, but wasted no time. There was something much more important to do. In the room, carefully opened the top drawer of the dresser and took an envelope with fresh notes from the bag. He told the banknotes of 50 reais, newly sliced from the ATM, 12,000. A good performance after another night of hard work. Then he removed from a pile of winter coats a larger envelope, already worn out of time, and joined the new money to the amount he had been keeping with such effort. 280-4,000. There was little to reach the 300. A smile escaped from his lips as he imagined the moment when he would finally receive the keys of an apartment of his own, without interruptions, without sermons, without the constant presence of someone who insisted on dictating how she should live. He hid the envelope in the same place, camouflaging it between the clothes, and allowed himself to lie for a moment. 2 hours of sleep first and more of work was all you could have. But the noise of a plate shattering on the floor tore it from the deep rest. He rose from a jump by recognizing his mother-in-law's unmistakable voice. "Constantine, my son, how do you stand to live with this disorganized?" "Well, your mother is here to take care of you. I'm going to do some moved eggs with tomatoes the way you like it." Lydia looked at the clock, 9:40 a.m. "I had slept too much. Your husband should have gone out for work for 40 minutes. Strange he is still at home." He put on the robe and went to the kitchen. There was Galina Efremovna, with a floury apron, stirring the pans, while Constantine, already in suit, had coffee at the table. "Good morning," Lydia murmured, trying to smile at her husband. "Finally woke up." The mother-in-law fired, without even looking at her. She could at least put a warrantor. Her husband almost leaves home with empty belly. "Mother, enough," interrupted Constantine, tired. "Leader worked all night. I make a sandwich myself if you need to." "Sandwich, that nothing," reported Galina, outraged. "Man needs a decent meal, not these gambiarras." Lydia sat in silence. I knew that arguing was useless. In a year and a half of forced living, he learned that the mother-in-law always had the last word. Always. She just wondered her husband. "Constantine, you'll be late. Lavrov won't like it." "Lavrov's dam," the mother-in-law snorted, serving the eggs with vim. "Here it is, my son. Eat while it's hot." Lydia remembered well how it all started. One night, 18 months ago, the phone rang at 3 in the morning. It was Galina, crying desperate. Her husband, Constantine's father, had left her after 35 years of marriage. She was destroyed. Unable to be alone in that apartment full of memories. "Mom, why don't you come to us for a while?" Constantine offered without consulting his wife. "Only until you rose." Lydia did not have the courage to refuse. After all, how to deny shelter to a woman in such a situation? For a while sounded reasonable. A week, maybe a month. But the time stretched, and Galina not only got the space. At first he occupied only the guest room. Then he was bringing his things slowly to the room, not to have to go and go. Then he began to rearrange the furniture. It gets more practical like that. Then he exchanged the curtains. These do not match the wall. And before they realized, the home that Lydia and Constantine had built together became an extension of Galina's house. "I'm going," Constantine announced, finishing the coffee. "What time do you go out today?" "Until the 6, she replied, finally taking a sip of the tea she had served. "Great." I intervened, the mother-in-law. "So there is time for me to do a pelmeni for you. You love my pelmeni since I was a child, aren't you, Constantine?" He kissed his mother on the face, gave Lydia's head a quick peck and hurried out. They were alone. "I don't understand why you insist on this pace of work," Galina began, washing the skillet hard. "A decent wife would be home when her husband arrives, not working on crazy shifts. What kind of housewife are you?" Lydia remained silent, counting mentally to 10. That litany was repeated almost every day, with small variations. "I'm a doctor," he replied, keeping calm. "My time is like this." "As if you couldn't get a normal job," exclaimed the mother-in-law, sneezing water with soap. "I could work in a clinic, from 9 to 6, as big people. And there would still be a fixed salary." Lydia sighed. Galina had no idea, I didn't even want to know, that she earned double in the emergency of what she would earn in an office. And it was precisely these night shifts that allowed you to raise money to realize their dream. Now, sitting on that same square where they used to walk on Sundays, Lydia tightened her hands until her fingers hurt. Where was that man? What had happened to Constantine, who swore to protect his peace above all? Was their love so fragile that a controlling mother was enough to collapse him like a castle of cards? The phone vibrated in your pocket. She pulled him with trembling hands, her heart fired. It was not him. It was the bank, confirming the transfer. 257,000 rubles. Your future, now untouchable. A future that increasingly seemed not to include Constantine. "Are you well?" Lydia lifted her eyes. An elderly lady, wrapped in a grey shawl, watched her with concern for the bench next door. "Sorry," Lydia murmured, discreetly wiping a tear that insisted on dragging. "Just a difficult day." The woman nodded, as if she understood more than the words said. "Sometimes, my daughter, loving someone means letting go. Even if it donates." Lydia swallowed hard. These were not advice she wanted. I wanted him. I wanted Constantine to appear there, empty hands and full heart, and say, "I choose you. Always you." But the clock on his cell phone scored 17:43, and the silence of the phone was deafening. She got up, shaking the breadcrumbs that stuck to jeans. Time to return to Marina's apartment. Time to start tidying up your things, not those that were scattered around the mother-in-law's house, but the ones that really mattered, the documents, the economies, the few photos that Galilee Efremovna had not organized to the trash. When he folded the corner, he spotted a flower shop. Without thinking, it entered. The lavender and roses aroma enveloped her, suffocating and sweet. Her fingers trembled when choosing a sunflower, big, stubborn, spinning the sun even when everything around it darkened. "For you, lit," Constantine imagined saying, as he did in the early months of dating. "Because you are the only thing that makes sense." "Is it a gift?" asked the attendant, smiling. Lydia looked at the flower in her hands. "No," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's to remind me that I still exist." He paid without waiting for change. As he left, the sky was grey, loaded with a storm that threatened to collapse at any moment. "Just like your life." The phone rang when she was already in the subway, tight between strange bodies that smelled the hurry and disappointment. This time it was him. The name blinked on the screen, Constantine, husband. For a second, Lydia closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Then he answered. "Hello." Silence. Then a broken, almost unrecognizable voice. I spoke to her." Lydia tightened the phone harder. "And?" "She said you're exaggerating. Which is all your invention. That I should bring you back right now, before you do some crazy." The train was grimaced on the tracks, drowning the sound of his own heart departing. "Then," repeated Lydia, each syllable a blow. "What do you think, Constantine?" Another pause. So long that she almost hung up. "I think." His voice failed. "I think you're right." Lydia held her breath. But I can't just throw her on the street, Lit. She is my mother. And me, whispered Lydia. What am I? The silence that followed was the answer. When Constantine spoke again, his words were careful, as if they were envelopes in cotton to cushion the impact. I need more time. Just a little more. Lydia laughed. A dry sound, without joy. Time for what? Cocked. For her to convince you that I'm the villain of this story? For you to wake up 5 years from now and realize that nothing left? That's not it, he tried, desperate. I love you. Love is not enough, Lydia cut, her voice firm now, like steel. Not when he comes with conditions. Not when it means that I have to nullify myself to see ABBA in the life she planned for you. The train braked sharply, throwing the passengers against each other. Lydia held on the post, her eyes burning. I won't wait, Constantine. No more. Lit, please. She hung up. And for the first time in years, it didn't look back. No, mother. Constantine's voice didn't train anymore. It was firm, as if each word were a nail being nailed to the wall he had finally decided to build. It was you who chose. Each hidden convescate, every look of contempt when Lydia served dinner, each time you reorganized the house as if it were yours. It was you who stole. Not just money, years. Our years. Galina Efremovna retreated as if he had been slapped. Its fingers, always so agile to crush seams or hide notes of 5,000, now shaking on the handbag. You're sick, son. This woman bewitched you. The tone was the usual, the offended mother, the victim of an ungrateful daughter-in-law. But this time, Constantine didn't lower his eyes. It's not spell, mother. It is respect. Something you never gave her. He paused, as if every syllable weighing. And if you can't respect my wife, you can't respect me. Lydia watched from the shadow of the corridor, leaning against the wall, her arms crossed. I did not intervene. I didn't need to. For the first time in years, Constantine was talking to her, not on her, but with her, as if her pain and voice finally had the same weight. And my things? Galina's question sounded like a last breath before drowning. My belongings are here. Send someone to pick them up. Constantine didn't even give in an inch. Or I take it myself tomorrow. But you don't enter. Silence. Such a dense silence that you could hear the wall clock tick-tack, the one that Lydia had bought in the first year of marriage, before Galina decided that it didn't match the decoration and hide it in the closet. You will regret it. The mother's threat was a poisonous murmur. One day, when she leaves you, when you're alone, you will remember who has always been by your side. Constantine did not answer. Just closed the door. The lock click echoed as an end point. Lydia waited. Told up to 10. Then, when Galina's footsteps got lost by the stairs, she approached her husband. It didn't touch him. Not yet. But it was there, close enough for him to feel her warmth, so that he knew he wasn't alone in that trench they dug together. She will come back. Constantine finally turned his face. His eyes were red but dry. Not today. No tomorrow. But go. I know. Lydia did not lie. He knew the type of woman Galina well was, those who did not accept defeats, only temporary arms. But this time, when she knocks on the door, you won't open. He swallowed hard. Nodded. I am not going. And it was right now, not when he discovered the envelopes, not when he kicked his mother, but there, in the dirty stillness of one morning after the battle, which Lydia knew, they had a chance. Not a guarantee. Not a happy ending wrapped on a gift paper. A chance. Fragile, bloody, earns at the cost of truths that hurt more than lies. And for the first time in a long time, she wanted to grab her with both hands. Isis, said Constantine, with a voice that did not train, but carried the weight of swallowed years. Goodbye. The door knocked with a dry crack, drowning out indignant shouts of Efremovna Galin on the other side. He turned and found Lydia leaning against the corridor wall, wrapped in the trail of a battle that still smelled the gunpowder and cold coffee. The robe covered her like an undone armor, but his eyes shone with something he hadn't seen for time, a spark of something that could be peace. Did you hear everything? He asked, and the question came out more as a confession than as doubt. She nodded. 1. Movement, slow, as if it feared that any brusco gesture could break the fragile balance of that moment. Then he step ahead. Then another. Until their fingers, trembling but firm, closed on the collar of their shirt. Thanks. Constantine pulled her to herself, and the hug was more than a gesture, it was a silent pact, sealed with the sound of heartbeat synchronizing. No, thanks to you, I meant. For not giving up. For making me see. But the words were lost in the throat knot, because some things are too big to fit in sentences. Across the door, Galina Efremovna protests still echoed, stuffy, like the last breath of a ghost who refuses from. But little by little, silence swallowed them. And there, in the middle of the narrow corridor, between walls that witnessed more fights than laughs, something new was born, fragile like a sprout after winter, but stubborn enough to insist on growing. Lydia knew it wouldn't be easy, that the scars would take time to close, that Galina Efremovna would not surrender without fighting. There were years of manipulation ahead, calls at 3 a.m, tears of crocodile, veiled accusations. But that night, while Constantine's fingers intertwined in their own, she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before, a determination that wasn't just hers. It was theirs. And that made all the difference. Tomorrow I take the money to the bank, he murmured more to herself than for him. The envelope with the notes, some recovered, some saved, dropped the drop, weighed in his bag like a promise. The first payment of what would be Delhi's, a house without shadows of Galina Efremovna, no adulatory looks, without the asphyxiation of a help that always smelled control. The next breakfast brought with it an unknown number on the phone. Lydia also answered, the cup in her hand, the steam of the coffee mixing to the cold air of the kitchen. Hello, Lidochka. Bela Stanislavovna's voice dripped luscious, too sweet to be sincere. It's Bela, friend of her mother-in-law. Lydia tightened her fingers around the phone. Of course it was. I'm listening. Ditochka, the thing is ugly. The woman lowered her voice to a theatrical whisper. Galochka is desolate. Cry since yesterday, the pressure fired, I had to call the ambulance. And what do you want me to do? Cut Lydia, dry. What do you mean, what to do? Bela Stanislavovna seemed genuinely scandalized. Convince Kostya not to abandon her mother. It's sin, girl. A mother doesn't play on the street. No one threw Galina Efremovna on the street. Lydia's calm was a sharp blade. She has her own apartment. But the ceiling leaks. The scream was so dramatic that Lydia almost laughed. Roofs fix themselves. She took a sip of coffee, savoring the irony. And from what I remember, Galina Efremovna is only 59 years old. Age enough to live alone. What a stone heart you have. The woman sighed, as if reciting a script. And after all she did for you. Cooked, cleaned, stole his money. Lydia froze. For a second, the world stopped. Sorry, Bela Stanislavovna. I have to work. And hung up, without waiting for the replica. The phone rang almost immediately. This time, it was the number of Galina Efremovna. Lydia rejected the call and blocked the contact. There was no more space for negotiations. Constantine entered the kitchen already in his coat, the half-crooked tie, as if he was in a hurry. Who called? Bela Stanislavovna. Lydia rinsed the cup with surgical accuracy. Telling how your mother is on the brink of death and how I should convince you to bring her back. He frowned. I also received 10 calls like this yesterday. The mother must have recruited the whole battalion of friends. As expected. Lydia shrugged. Are you prepared for this? Constantine approached and wrapped it through the OMBR. The chin resting on your head. More than prepared. His voice was low, but firm. Yesterday, when I closed that door, I felt like I had taken a weight off my back. A weight I didn't even know carrying. Lydia smiled. I knew that relief well. I have to go. She was reluctantly released. We see each other at night. The hospital, as always, was a whirlwind of emergencies and bureaucracies. Lydia reviewed exams when Marina peeked through the doctor's room door, arched eyebrows. Yesterday you disappeared like a ghost. All good. Better than in a long time. Lydia closed the folder with a satisfactory snap. Constantine expelled his mother from home. and found my money in her belongings. Marina whistled bass. Damn. And how did he react? It was on my side. I still sounded surreal to say that out loud. For the first time in a year and a half. Finally, Marina threw herself into the next chair, crossing her legs. And the money? Was everything there? About 100,000. Lydia sighed. The rest, I imagine, has already been stopping in someone else's pockets. But with what he returned, I have over 350,000. Enough for the entrance. You don't play. Marina stared at her, impressed. And the Constantine? Does he know this plan? Not yet. Lydia played with the pen between her fingers. But I'll tell you today. I think he will want that too. What if you don't want to? She looked out the window, where the grey winter sky promised snow. I'm going to buy this house with him or without him. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. For itself. They left the real estate office with the feeling that a new page opened in their lives. I don't believe we got it, Lydia thought, squeezing the paste with the copies of contracts against her chest. We will have our house, Ko. He pulled her to him, wrapping his shoulders with a strong arm. If it wasn't for your stubbornness and your discipline, we would still be living with your mother in that rented apartment. They walked down the sidewalk, drawing plans as if the future were a blank screen waiting for their brushstrokes. What furniture would buy, as would decorate the bedroom of the baby that would once come, what color they would choose for the walls. Everything seemed possible. Until Constantine's phone vibrated, breaking the magic of the moment. He looked at the screen and frowned. Again her. Your mother, Lydia murmured, watching the shadow that crossed her face. Will you answer? I'll have to, he sighed, sliding his finger down the screen. Hello, mother. Lydia did not hear what was said on the other side of the line, but Constantine's expression was enough response. The muscles of his jaw were tensioned. No, mother, we didn't change our minds, her voice was firm, sharp. We just got into our apartment. A break. No, you won't live with us. Even firmer. This house is mine and Lydia. Only ours. Another pause. Lydia saw his fingers close in hand. Sorry, but that decision is ours. And no, I won't betray my wife for your comfort. He heard for a few seconds, his face tired, before turning off. When he kept the phone, his eyes found those of Lydia, loaded with exhaustion. She discovered by Bella that we were looking for apartment, he explained, running his hand over his face. I was already planning which room it would be. Lydia squeezed her hand. We'll do it. The important thing is that this time you saw the situation as it is. Yes, he exhaled, as if a weight he had been carrying for years. Do you know something? I think we should celebrate this purchase. A shy smile came on his lips. How about that Italian restaurant where I asked you to marry? Lydia's heart warmed up. I would love. Today is a good day. Deserves to be celebrated. 3 months passed like a breath. At that time, Galina Efremovna did not give up. He called health complaints, sent friends to surprise visits, once even a fall for Constantine to be. It's your home. But with each attempt, his manipulations became more obvious and the more adamant son's reaction. Constantine helped with the repair of the roof, visited it regularly, even took groceries, but refused to stay over there. Little by little, Galina Efremovna realized that the tactic needed to change. He began to act more cautiously, hoping that over time, he would recover control over his son. On the day they received the keys of the apartment, Lydia and Constantine took time off at work. They went to the developer in the morning, signed the latest papers and finally received the keys source from the hands of the manager, who smiled. Congratulations on the new home. Now it's officially of you. They ran to the building, rose to the 9th walk with their hearts rapid and stopped before the 907 door. You or me? Constantine reached out the keys. Let's do it together. She took a key, they inserted her into the lock at the same time. The door opened, and there was his home. The smell of fresh paint and plaster filled the air. The empty rooms, bathed by the light that entered the large windows, seemed endless, full of promises. I don't believe it, Lydia whispered, traveling every corner with her eyes. This is all ours. Constantine hugged her from behind. The place where we will be happy. They were hugged by the window, admiring the view when Constantine's phone vibrated again. He took him out of his pocket, looked at the screen and sighed. Your mother. Again. Lydia felt the body tension. What does she want now? I don't know, he hesitated, looking at the device. Could it be something important? Answering, she walked away slightly. Just don't say we already got the keys. Constantine nodded and answered. Hello, Mother. All good. His face was changing, first surprised, then suspicious. Wait, repeat. He frowned. What do you want? A break. Mom, thanks, but we realize alone. His voice left no room for discussion. And no, we don't want your help with reform or change. Lydia raised her eyebrows, intrigued. Yes, I know you want to help, he continued. But we need to do that ourselves. This house is our project. Another pause. Of course we will invite you to the inauguration party, when everything is ready. I promise. He hung up and looked at Lydia. You won't believe it. She offered help with the reform. He said he wants to compensate and support us. And do you believe that? Lydia crossed her arms, skeptical. Of course not, he laughed without humor. You're just looking for a gap to get in our lives again. His smile became determined. But that won't happen. Never again. Lydia leaned against him, feeling the warmth of her body. Do you know something? I'm proud of you. I am proud too, he murmured, kissing her hair. Just regret it took so much time and so much pain to get here. He paused. But I won't be back. Interest. They stayed there for a long time, in the middle of the empty room, weaving dreams in a low voice. The way until that moment had been hard, but now they knew, together they would overcome anything. 2 weeks later, with the renovation in full swing, Lydia returned late from work. Passing the old building where they lived, he spotted a family figure by the gate. Galina Efremovna was there, holding a small package, swinging from one foot to the other. For a moment Lydia thought of moving on, pretending not to have seen her. But something made her stop. Galina Efremovna, he called with a firmness that surprised herself. The woman shuddered and turned. Ah, Lidochka. Yes, I wanted to deliver something to Kostya. Lydia approached. We don't live here anymore. You know that. I know. Galina's voice Efremovna was low, her eyes low. I just don't have the address of the new apartment, and Kostya doesn't answer my calls. Lydia watched her carefully. It was visible. And slaughtered. Deep dark circles marked his face, and his hands trembled slightly as he held the package. What did you want to deliver? Galina Efremovna extended the package. I found an old photo album. It has pictures of Kostya when I was small. I thought, maybe he would like to have. Lydia accepted her package, feeling an uncomfortable weight in her hands. I'll give him. Thanks. The next morning dawned with unusual clarity for October. Lydia woke up in the new house, where she still hung the smell of paint and fresh plaster. Sol rays filtered down the curtain windows, drawing gold patterns on the walls. Beside her, Constantine slept quietly, with a piece she hadn't seen for a long time. Carefully, not to wake him up, Lydia slipped out of bed and went to the window. From the 9th floor, the view of the park, already played by the golden gold, was stunning. Our home. Our life. Without intrusions, without constant tension, without the need to always be in guard. Good morning, Constantine's sleepy voice made her turn. Sorry, I woke up. He stretched on the bed, smiling. No, I just missed you by my side. He sat down, rubbing his eyes. What do we do today? I have all day free. We need to finish the room. Lydia sat on the edge of the bed. And assemble the wardrobe of the room. Remember that the other part of the furniture arrives tomorrow? I remember, he pulled her close. I can't believe we're here. That this is all ours. Your hug was tight, as if it feared that everything could disappear. It's like I was born again. Lydia nestled against him, inspiring his familiar smell. The last weeks had been a rush, renovation, furniture choices, nights planning every detail. But it was worth it. Each drop of sweat, every discussion with plumbers, every difficult decision. Because now, they were free. And nothing, not even Galina Efremovna, would take it out of them. The change had been exhaustive, but every minute of that chaos had become blessing after a year and a half dividing the same ceiling with Galina Efremovna. Kostya, Lydia suddenly remembered the meeting of the day before. I saw your mother yesterday. His body tensioned instantly. Where? Near the old house. She was waiting for you. Lydia got up and went to the dresser, where she rested a package that her mother-in-law had given her. She asked to give you that. He said it was his childhood photos. Kostya looked at the package with suspicion, as if she feared there was a trap there. Just that. No requirement, no request. No, he shook his head. Lydia. She looked lost. He said he wanted to apologize. He took the package, but did not open it. You know, I don't believe in her sincerity. Too many manipulations over the years. I don't believe it either, Lydia admitted frankly. But perhaps this situation has taught you something. I doubt, he answered, placing the package aside. Let's have coffee. I'm starving. They spent all day in household chores, riding furniture, hanging curtains, organizing books on the new shelves. At night, exhausted but satisfied, they sat on the floor of the room, leaning against the wall, admiring the result of his work. She's looking home, she noted Kostya, with a smile of satisfaction. Yes, he annied himself. Lydia on his shoulder. Our home. Kostya's phone rang, breaking the tranquility. He removed him from his pocket and frowned to see his mother's name on the screen. Are you going to answer? Asked Lydia. I will have to. He sighed and answered. Yes, mother. Lydia watched every change in her expression, from distrust to surprise, then to perplexity. Well, I understood, he said finally. Yes, we can meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Tverskaya Cafe. Yes, I know what it is. See you tomorrow. He hung up and looked at Lydia confused. She wants to see us. He says he has something important to say. What happened? I have no idea. Kostya shrugged. It was strangely calm. None Rama, no accusation, just asked for a meeting. Are you? I go. Nodded. As much as everything happened, she is still my mother. And if it's serious? Lydia agreed with a gesture. Of course. Only, be careful. You know her methods. I know. He hugged her. Don't worry, I won't fall into any manipulation. The next day was a rush. The remaining furniture arrived, and Lydia spent the morning organizing everything. Kostya helped her to lunch, then prepared to meet her mother. Are you sure you don't want to come with me? Lydia asked when he was already at the door. It is not necessary. He shook his head. I think it will be better that way. If she really wants to apologize, it will be easier to alone. What if it's more manipulation? I leave at the same time, he said firmly. I promise. Lydia accompanied him with his eyes, restless. Something told him that Galina Efremovna would not give up so easily. Alone, Lydia continued to fix the house. While putting the books on the shelves, his gaze fell on the forgotten package with the photos. Kostya had not even opened it. Hesitant, she unfolded the roll. Inside, there was an old photo album with gassed leather cover for time. He opened it carefully and, on the first page, saw a picture of a chubby Kostya, dressed in a funny jumpsuit. Flipping the pages, Lydia smiled when she saw her husband's childhood images. The first steps, the candles being blown, he sitting on the shoulders of a smiling young man, clearly his father. Suddenly an envelope fell from the album. Lydia took him and found a double sheet of paper. Kostya and read it was written by hand with the lyrics of Galina. He hesitated before opening. Reading something so intimate without permission made her uncomfortable, but the envelope was addressed to both. After a brief moment, he unfolded the sheet. Dear Kostya, and read. I thought a lot before writing this letter. Pride did not allow me to admit how wrong I was, but time puts everything in place. Kostya, my son, were right when I said I tried to manipulate him. After your father left us, I felt alone and unnecessary. I thought that if it were indispensable to you, If you could not live without me, it would never be alone. It was selfish. It was wrong. Reed, I must apologize even more with you. I saw you a rival, the woman who stole my son. Now I understand how foolish this was. You made him happy while I only destroyed your happiness. I don't expect forgiveness, especially for the money I took without asking. It was unworthy. I removed from my account an amount everything I managed to join. It does not compensate for moral damage, but at least returns what I took dishonestly. I will not intrude on your life anymore. And I understand if you don't want to see me, but know that I sincerely regret and I wish you all happiness. With love. Mama Galina. Next to the letter there was a bank proof, 100,000 rubles transferred to the Lydia account. She was paralyzed, not knowing what to think. I sounded sincere. Or would it be more of a manipulation? How many times Galina Efremovna had pretended to regret just to return to the same behavior? The phone rang, taking it out of thoughts. It was Kostya. How was the meeting? I'm in shock. His voice sounded stunned. Mom, she really apologized. No dramas, no manipulation. He just asked for forgiveness for everything. I know, said Lydia softly. I found her letter on the album. What letter? She left one for both of us, and a proof of transfer. There was a break. She gave me money too, admitted Kostya finally. He said it was to repair the damage. And do you know what's weird? He asked for nothing in return. It did not require visits, it did not imply that it wants to live with us. He only said he recognized his mistakes and will respect our limits. Do you believe it? Asked Lydia directly. I don't know, he answered honestly. I want to believe it, but it doesn't look like her. People change, Lydia noted. Sometimes a blow to the rug can wake up to the most stubborn. Perhaps Kostya agreed. Soon I'm home, then I tell you everything. At night, sitting at the dinner table at his new apartment, Kostya shared the details of the meeting. You know, she looked aged. Thin, as if aged 10 years at once. Do you pity her? Asked Lydia, serving tea. A little, he admitted. It's still my mother, despite everything. And you can see that it is bad. What did you say to her? I need time. Kostya looked out the window, thoughtful. I'm not ready to forget everything right away, but I value your excuses. She said she understands and won't hurry things. Lydia covered her hand with hers. You did it right. You can't pretend nothing happened, but I don't think it's fair either to erase it from your life completely. He paused. I was thinking of helping with the repair of her apartment. Kostya turned to his wife. Not so she will live with us, but to live well on hers. What do you think? I don't oppose, Lydia answered. Lydia nodded with a firm gesture, her fingers intertwined with those of Kostya. If you want to help you, it's the right thing to do. But let's set clear, combined boundaries. So that she does not interpret this as a sign that everything can be as before. Of course, he agreed without hesitation. No overnights here, no intrusion into our decisions, just the repair of the apartment and, perhaps, some dinners together from time to time. Lydia smiled, relieved. I think it's a fair deal. A month passed. The walls of Efremovna Galina house came to a new life. The roof that dripped was fixed, the old windows replaced by modern models, and the previously peeled bathroom now shone with new tiles. Kostya supervised every detail, while Lydia, to her own surprise, watched the mother-in-law with other eyes. There were no more orders, no acidic criticism, nor that look of superiority that once made it their teeth. Galina Efremovna looked different. Calmer. More humane. It was on Sunday, during a lunch at a quiet coffee, which Kostya insisted, Mom, Lydia. I think it's time for you two to try to talk for real. Galina Efremovna lowered the fork, the trembling fingers on the tablecloth. Lyudok began, the voice broken by a rare emotion, I want to apologize again. My behavior was unforgivable. Lydia looked up, surprised. Thank you, Galina Efremovna. I value your words. But the mother-in-law didn't stop there. He passed his fingers through the edge of the cup, as if seeking courage. When Georgie, your father, left us, thought my life was over. I clung to you, Kostya, like a lifeguard, without realizing that I was drowning you too. Mother, he tried to interrupt, but she raised her hand. No, let me finish. I need to say that. He turned to Lydia, the damp eyes. When you kicked me out of the house, I hated you. I thought you were an intruder, a witch who stole my son. But alone, in that empty apartment, I started to remember how I humiliated you, how to invaded your life, how he took his money without asking. A tear ran down his wrinkled face. I am embarrassed. True shame. I don't know if someday I deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know, I regret it from the bottom of my heart. Lydia watched that woman, the same one that had caused her so many nights of crying, so much anger contained, and for the first time she didn't feel hatred. No triumph. Just a deep tiredness, mixed with a twinge of sadness for all the time lost in useless battles. Galina Efremovna finally said the serene voice, I don't keep a grudge. Sincerely. Glad you have seen your mistakes. And while you can't erase the past, I'm willing to try to build something healthy, for you, for us, by Kostya. The mother-in-law nodded, the tears dripping without control. Kostya, sitting between them, squeezed the hands of both. I'm so proud of you both. 3 me's. Then, winter had given way to early spring, and Lydia realized, almost unintentionally, that something had changed. Galina Efremovna did not appear without warning, gave no advice not requested, did not criticize her choices. They were once a week, either Lydia and Kostya had dinner at her mother-in-law's house, or invited her to a lunch at her apartment, always with the tacit condition she would return home at dusk. In one of these meetings, when Galina Efremovna was already preparing to leave, she stopped at the door and turned to Lydia. You know, I wanted to tell you something, confessed hesitantly. Glad you showed firmness at that time. If it weren't for that, we would all be sunk in that nightmare. Lydia stared at her, astonished. Do you think that? Yes, confirmed the mother-in-law with a tired smile. Sometimes you need to show your teeth to be respected. You did it. And I respect you for that. Then he added, softly, you make my son happy. This is what matters. When the door closed, Lydia was still by the window, observing the fragile figure of the mother-in-law to move on the sidewalk. Kostya approached from behind, wrapping her in her arms. What are you thinking about? In How Strange Life Is, she murmured, turning to him. Who would say that hell would come out, this? He kissed his temple. Sometimes it is necessary that everything goes down so that something new can be born. It was then that Kostya changed Tom, the sudden and serious expression. I wanted to talk to you about one thing. Lydia arched her eyebrows. What? Remember when we talk about having a child, after we had our own space? A slow smile drew on his lips. I remember. Are you wondering that? I'm ready, he said, simple as that. Our house is ready, our relationship with my mother is stable, my work has never been better. I think it's the time. Lydia hugged him tightly. I'm ready too. And you know, joked, I think your mother can even become a good grandmother, as long as she doesn't exceed the boundaries, of course. Kostya laughed. I spoke to her these days. She herself said she won't get in the creation, but will be happy to help if we ask. This is already an advance, admitted Lydia, her eyes shining. I think we'll work. 1 year passed. In Lydia and Kostya's apartment, a room was transformed into a dream refuge. Clear walls with an enchanted forest wall, a white crib in the corner, shelves full of stuffed animals and children's little books. Lydia shook in the wicker chair with little Sophia, her 1-week-old daughter, dormant in her arms. The door opened slowly, and Galina Efremovna entered carrying a cup of steaming tea. I thought you could want it, whispered, putting it on the table next to it. It must be exhausted. Thank you, Lydia thanked, moved. Sonia just fell asleep. The mother-in-law sat carefully on the edge of the couch, her eyes fixed on her granddaughter. She is perfect. So small and so complete. Want to hold? Offered Lydia. Galina Efremovna looked at her insecure. Can I? Of course. Deliciously, Lydia passed the blanket wrapping to her grandmother's trembling arms. She has the same features as Kostya as a baby, Galina noted, thrilled. The same eyebrows, the same nose. He said the same thing, laughed Lydia. You know, I wanted to thank you. The mother-in-law lifted her eyes, surprised. Why? For keeping your word. For respecting our limits. When we ask for help and not to appear when we need space. Galina Efremovna shook her head. You don't have to thank you for finally doing what you should always have done. It's me who should thank you, for giving me a second chance. He shook Sophia with reverent care, murmuring a low, almost imperceptible lullaby song. Lydia watched her, reflecting on the long way they went through from the open war to that fragile but genuine peace. Kostya appeared at the door, her face lit up to see the scene. How are my favorite women? Okay, Lydia answered, accepting the glass of water he offered him. Everything, perfect. Later, when Galina Efremovna had already broken and Sophia slept deeply in her crib, the couple stayed in the living room, savoring the rare silence. Do you remember how it all started? Asked Lydia suddenly. That day when I found your mother rolling our things in our room? Kostya nodded. As if it were yesterday. Funny thinking it was just 2 years ago. It seems another life. Sometimes I think if it wasn't for that fuse, if I hadn't taken an attitude, we would still be stuck in that cycle, she reflected. Probably, he agreed. Or worse, our marriage would not have survived. I would have stayed with her, you would have moved on, and we would never have arrived here. Lydia shuddered. I prefer not to imagine. He smiled, then and squeezed his hand. But we arrived. And look where we are. But life, as always, has made its own ways. Constantine wrapped his wife in his arms, his chest vibrating with a low and accomplice laugh. And do you know what is the irony? Everything ended exactly as it should. We won what we always wanted, this home, this family. His mother, the retired apartment he dreamed of so much, and the granddaughter he loves, but, for the first time, doesn't try to steal us. We have learned, all of us, to respect each other's boundaries, added Lydia, with a tone of victory in the voice. Who would say, wasn't it? They were so embraced, plunged into the cozy silence of the house they had gained. Outside, the spring rain was beginning to fall, drumming smoothly against the glass, as if the time itself applauded the peace that had finally settled. In the room, little Sophia breathed deep into her sleep, innocent and protected. And in the chest of Lydia, a deep gratitude pulsed for having, at that decisive moment, the courage to fight for what was yours. Because there are times when you need to show the claws to be respected. And sometimes it is exactly this gesture, this break of strength, which turns the page of history and rewrites everything for the better.